in the middle of a packed Atlanta studio. The air crackled with raw hostility as President Donald Trump sneered across the stage at Barack Obama, mocking his legacy and questioning his very belonging in America, only for Obama to sit perfectly still, calm as a storm's eye, before calmly dismantling Trump's entire facade with a devastating exposure that left the entire nation gasping in shock. The studio in downtown Atlanta buzzed with raw energy. Every seat was filled, and the air felt thick with nerves and anticipation. Lights glared down on the stage, catching the tension on people's faces. On one side sat Barack Obama, calm and still, legs crossed, hands resting easy in his lap. Across from him, Donald Trump leaned forward in his chair, shoulders squared, chin up, wearing that signature confident smirk. The host stepped up, microphone in hand, trying to keep things smooth, but clearly feeling the pressure. Good evening, folks. Tonight we've got something special. Please welcome former President Barack Obama and the current President of the United States, Donald Trump. The crowd erupted in a messy roar, cheers mixing with boos and scattered applause. It took a few seconds for the noise to settle. The host wiped his brow and turned to Trump. Mr. President, let's start with you. What's the biggest issue Americans are dealing with right now? Trump didn't waste a second. He adjusted his tie, flashed a grin, and jumped right in with that booming voice that filled the room. It's simple, really. This country was doing fantastic, better than ever, until the mess we got handed. Inflation is through the roof. Groceries cost a fortune. Gas prices are killing working families. People can't afford homes anymore. These aren't just numbers. These are real struggles hitting kitchens across America every single day. He paused, letting his words sink in, eyes scanning the crowd like he owned the place. Open borders letting in millions, crime spiking, jobs disappearing. All of it traces back to weak leadership and terrible decisions from the past. He kept rolling, throwing out stats fast and hard. Under the previous administration, we saw record inflation hit 9%. Families paying hundreds more a month just to survive. Border crossings exploded. Over 10 million encounters. That's not sustainable, that's chaos. Wages stagnated while costs skyrocketed. That's the truth they don't want to talk about. Trump pointed a finger forward for emphasis, his voice rising. The audience shifted in their seats, some nodding along, others whispering uneasily. Then he locked eyes directly across the stage at Obama. The room seemed to hold its breath. Trump's expression hardened as he leaned in closer to the microphone. The disaster we inherited has a name, and everyone here knows exactly who I'm talking about. He didn't blink. Trump didn't let up. His voice cut sharper now. This country was roaring like a lion before they handed it over broken. Now families can't even buy groceries. Whose fault is that? They made promises, talked a big game, but left us with broken systems and weak policies. I had to come in and start fixing it all. That's the difference between talk and action. Trump finished his attack. All eyes turned to Obama. He sat completely still, hands folded in his lap, his face calm and steady. He didn't shift or look uncomfortable. Trump glanced over with a smirk, clearly expecting Obama to get rattled or defensive. But Obama just listened, letting the weight of Trump's words hang in the air. Finally, Obama adjusted the microphone slightly and spoke in that familiar, measured voice. He didn't sound angry or rushed. Instead, he came across as steady and in control. "Pointing fingers is easy, Donald," he said, looking straight across the stage. "What's hard is looking at the mirror and asking what you've actually fixed instead of just inherited." Trump immediately cut in, his voice loud and sharp. "You had 8 years and left a mess." Obama didn't raise his voice. He simply nodded once, then continued. "Let's talk about responsibility and the real facts, not just blame. Americans deserve honesty, not more excuses." He reached down and picked up a small remote. With a calm click, a large screen behind them lit up with a short video clip. It showed Trump years earlier sitting in an interview clearly saying the economy under Obama was doing well and had strong numbers. The crowd reacted with surprised murmurs and some gasps. Trump's face tightened as he watched his own old words play back. "That was you, Donald," Obama said evenly, "praising the progress we made coming out of the financial crisis. But now you're blaming everything on the past. The numbers don't lie." He paused, then hit harder on the second big point. "You keep talking about sky-high inflation and terrible unemployment. But let's be clear about what's real. Before COVID hit, we created over 11 million jobs during my time in office. Wages were rising for working families, especially at the bottom. That's not spin, that's record." The room buzzed. Some people clapped while others looked stunned. Obama kept going, his tone firm but never shouting. "Leadership isn't about tearing down what came before you. It's about owning the challenges and actually solving them for the people who are struggling right now. Families don't need more blame games. They need real answers." Trump shifted in his seat, looking irritated as the energy in the room started shifting toward Obama. Trump could no longer sit still. His face flushed deep red, and he gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. The confident smirk from earlier was gone, replaced by a tight, angry scowl. He leaned forward aggressively, jabbing his finger toward Obama's side of the stage. Everyone could see he had lost control and was about to go personal. "You know what the real problem is?" Trump started, his voice booming louder than before. "We've got people in this country who don't belong here. They come in, take advantage, but their loyalty isn't to America. It's somewhere else. That's why our borders are wide open and chaos is everywhere." He paused, letting the words sink in, then doubled down with a sharper tone. "Some people come here and never become American. They stay loyal to somewhere else. Maybe they should go back where they came from." The audience froze for a split second. Then murmurs spread like wildfire. Trump wasn't done. He kept pushing, repeating the old birther hints in a way that everyone understood. "We've had so-called leaders who weren't even born in this country, who don't get what it means to be a real American. They question our values. They weaken us from the inside. How can you lead if you don't even belong here in the first place? Loyalty to America, that's what we need. Not divided hearts. Not people who put other countries first." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some people cheered him on while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The air felt heavier, colder. Trump's eyes narrowed as he stared directly at Obama. "This is why families are struggling. This is why everything feels broken. When you let the wrong people in and let them run things, you get disaster. Real Americans know this. We've seen it for years." Right then, a black woman in her 40s sitting in the middle rows shot up from her seat. Her voice cut through the room like a thunderclap. "That's a lie," she yelled at the top of her lungs. "That's pure hate and you know it." The studio erupted into complete chaos. Cameras swung wildly toward her. Her face was filled with fury as she stood there, fists clenched at her sides. People around her started reacting instantly, some jumping up to support her, shouting, "She's right," while others booed loudly and told her to sit down. Arguments broke out across entire sections of the audience. A man nearby tried to pull her back into her seat, but she shook him off. Security guards rushed down the aisles, creating even more disorder. The host looked completely overwhelmed, waving his hands and calling for calm, but his voice got drowned out in the noise. Trump sat back with a satisfied grin spreading across his face, clearly pleased that he had sparked the fire. He raised his hands as if to say, "See what I mean?" while the shouting continued. Obama remained seated, completely still, watching everything unfold with that same steady expression. His calm only made the chaos around him stand out more. The woman kept shouting over the noise, "You're dividing people who built this country. My family has been here for generations, and we're more American than your hate." The cameras kept rolling, capturing every angry face, every raised hand, every heated exchange. The security calmed things down, but the air in the studio stayed thick with electricity. Obama sat quietly for a moment, letting the tension breathe. Then he leaned forward slightly, his expression changing from calm to something sharper and more focused. You talk so much about family values, Donald, Obama said, his voice steady but cutting. About protecting what's sacred, about strength and respect. But let me ask you this. What does that really mean to you when it comes to the women in your own life? The room went dead quiet. Trump raised an eyebrow, looking confused at first, then amused. Before he could respond, Obama continued. You speak of family values and protecting daughters, yet you once said on national television that if Ivanka weren't your daughter, you'd be dating her. Was that also a joke about respect? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Obama didn't wait. He picked up the remote again and played a short audio clip. Trump's own voice filled the studio from years ago. If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. The recording was clear and unmistakable. The audience reacted with a wave of shock. Some people whispering, others shaking their heads. A few even booed openly. Trump's face turned bright red almost instantly. He slammed his hand on the table and pointed angrily at Obama. You have no right to talk about my family, he shouted, his voice cracking with rage. That was a joke. Everyone knows it was just a joke. You're disgusting for bringing that up. Obama stayed completely composed, which only seemed to make Trump angrier. Words matter, Donald, Obama said evenly, especially from someone who claims to be a leader and a protector of family values. When you say things like that about your own daughter on national television, it tells people what kind of respect you really have for women. The studio was buzzing again. Cameras zoomed in tight on Trump's flushed face as he kept pointing and sputtering. It was a joke. You're twisting everything like you always do. I built a great family. You don't get to lecture me about mine. Then Obama dropped the hammer that no one saw coming. He looked straight at Trump and asked calmly, Then tell the country, Donald, who gave birth to your youngest son, Barron? The question hit like a bomb. For a split second, Trump looked completely stunned, his mouth open but no words coming out. The entire audience gasped loudly. Some people covered their mouths in disbelief. Murmurs exploded across the room as the perfect symmetry with the old birther attacks became crystal clear. Trump's face went from red to almost purple with fury. What kind of disgusting question is that? Trump finally exploded, standing halfway out of his chair. This is ridiculous. I don't have to answer your nonsense. You're the one who doesn't belong here. Obama didn't flinch. He simply sat there, calm and controlled, while Trump continued ranting. Then Trump completely lost it. His face burned with rage as he gripped the sides of his chair, knuckles white. The calm mask he tried to keep earlier had shattered. He leaned forward, voice rising into a shout. You're a disgrace, Trump snarled, pointing aggressively at Obama. You sit there acting all high and mighty, but you're the one who divided this country. You're the one who let everyone walk all over us. Weak leadership, weak borders, weak everything. And now you want to attack my family? You have no class, no respect. This is exactly why America is in trouble, because of people like you who don't even belong here. The audience erupted. The room split right down the middle. One section started chanting loudly, Trump, 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 while another group clapped and shouted, Obama, Obama. The dueling chants grew louder, crashing into each other and filling the studio with raw noise. People were standing up, yelling across the aisles at one another. The debate had turned into a full-blown battlefield. Then something no one expected happened. A man in his late 50s sitting in the third row suddenly stood up. He was wearing a simple suit and looked nervous but determined. The cameras quickly swung toward him. I worked in the White House during President Trump's term, he said, his voice strong enough to cut through some of the noise. I heard him say terrible things about President Obama behind closed doors. He called him lazy, incompetent, and worse. He mocked him constantly when the cameras were off. This isn't new. This is who he really is. The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. Gasps and shouts exploded again. Some Trump supporters booed the man while others looked stunned. The former staffer stood tall as security moved toward him, refusing to sit down right away. Trump shot up from his chair so fast it nearly fell backward. His face was twisted with fury as he jabbed his finger straight at Obama. "This is why this country is failing. Because of people like you," he roared at the top of his lungs. "Fake news liars and disloyal people trying to tear me down. I don't have time for this nonsense. I have a real country to run." With that, Trump yanked off his microphone, threw it down on the table, and stormed off the stage. The audience watched in stunned silence for a split second before exploding again. Some cheered his exit, others booed loudly. The host stood there frozen, unsure what to do as Trump disappeared behind the curtain. The empty chair on stage suddenly felt louder than anything said all night. Obama sat still for a moment, letting the quiet do its work. Then he slowly stood up, buttoned his jacket, and stepped slightly forward. He looked directly into the cameras and then across the entire studio, speaking in that calm, powerful voice that carried through the room without needing to shout. "Moments like this remind us what leadership really is," he began. "When someone runs from tough questions about their own words, they show us exactly who they are. America deserves better. We are better." He paused, his expression sincere and thoughtful. "I want to speak to every person watching tonight, especially the young people. I know what it's like to grow up without a father, searching for a sense of belonging. I was a skinny kid with a funny name, raised by a single mother and my grandparents. There were plenty of people who said I didn't belong, that I wasn't American enough. But I learned something important along the way. Belonging is not earned by blood. It's earned by contribution, by love for this country, by showing up and working to make it better for everyone." The audience listened in complete silence, many leaning forward. Obama's voice grew stronger with quiet emotion. "We have a choice right now. We can choose hope instead of hate. We can choose to lift each other up instead of tearing each other down. To every family struggling with bills, to every parent worried about their kid's future, to every young person who feels lost, your story matters. Your voice matters. Don't let fear and division win." Suddenly, the entire studio rose to their feet. The applause started strong and kept building, rolling like thunder through the crowd. People clapped with everything they had. Some cheered, others wiped tears from their eyes. The standing ovation stretched on, wave after wave, as Obama stood there humbly nodding to the audience. He waited for the noise to settle just enough before delivering his final words. "Our children are watching us. They're learning from how we treat each other. Let's teach them that real greatness has nothing to do with power or noise. It's about dignity, compassion, and the courage to do what's right even when it's hard. When a man runs from questions about his own words, he shows us exactly who he is. America deserves better. We are better, and we will prove it, not with rage, but with resolve." The applause exploded again, even louder than before. Obama gave one last nod to the crowd, then stepped back. The lights stayed bright on the empty stage as the sound of unified clapping filled the studio. What had started as a fierce clash ended with a powerful reminder of what America could be. The quiet thunder had spoken, and it was a sound no one in that room would soon forget.